Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a world where biology meets meticulous engineering. We aren't talking about your average pet store fish here. We are looking at the fancy goldfish as a bioengineered, high-performance athlete. In this realm, every single input, from water pressure to protein ratios, is meticulously calculated to figure out exactly how to increase goldfish belly size and achieve an aesthetic ideal. Right off the bat, you gotta wonder, how do goldfish get so round? Seriously, when you compare the sleek torpedo shape of a wild carp to these incredible, almost spherical creatures, how do they get that deep, rounded golf ball silhouette? Well, it absolutely doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of a highly deliberate, multifactorial science that professional breeders call grooming. Okay, let's dive into this. Our training regimen for decoding this extreme belly expansion covers 5 key pillars: the genetics of girth, revving the metabolism, the high-protein diet, engineering the environment, and finally, balancing mass and health. Starting off with pillar number 1, the genetics of girth, building that foundation. Because look, before any feeding manipulation even begins, the fundamental ceiling for a goldfish's size is established right at conception through its structural architecture. You simply cannot induce a massive, chunky belly in a specimen that lacks the right skeletal frame. It's just not going to happen. For instance, with a ranchu, breeders absolutely require a thick, wide caudal peduncle, that's the muscle joining the body to the tail, just to support the heavy ballast of a massive belly. Or take the rookin. Groomers are specifically selecting for a steep dorsal rise to support that vertical depth. It's selective breeding at its absolute most precise. Moving right along to pillar 2, revving the metabolism through temperature control. So goldfish are essentially organic machines, and to build mass, you have to control their internal engines. Since fancy goldfish are ectothermic poikilotherms, meaning they don't regulate their own body heat like we do, their metabolism is dictated entirely by the water temperature around them. Groomers totally take advantage of this biological reality through what's called thermodynamic metabolic acceleration. By tweaking the water temperature, they can literally speed up or slow down the fish's metabolic rate, zeroing in on the absolute perfect window for rapid muscle and tissue growth. Temperature really dictates everything here. If you drop the water below 65 degrees Fahrenheit, metabolic processes grind to a halt, massively increasing the risk of constipation. On the flip side, push it above 80 degrees, and the fish faces severe thermal stress and depleted oxygen. But that middle zone, right around 72 to 78 degrees, that is the sweet spot. That's exactly where digestive enzymes operate at peak efficiency. It's honestly just like putting a bodybuilder in an optimized climate-controlled environment to maximize those gains. Which brings us to our third pillar, the high-protein diet, fueling the engine. Now that the metabolism is revving, you have to strategically deliver fuel to an animal that actually lacks a true stomach. You might assume girth just means fat, but the most successful show specimens are actually highly muscular. To achieve that, groomers rely on macronutrient profiles, where protein makes up a massive 40 to 50% of the diet. We're talking ingredients like fish meal, krill, and bloodworms. These provide the essential amino acids needed to physically expand the abdominal wall and build dense, heavy tissue, rather than just unhealthy fat. And get ready for this, because this number is truly staggering. 25. That is the number of times per day that professional breeders might feed their fish during peak growth phases. 25. Because goldfish lack a stomach, digestion happens continuously in a really long intestine. So groomers use frequent, tiny, micro portions every few hours to keep that intestine constantly engaged. This literally forces the abdominal cavity to expand to accommodate that continuous nutrient flux. But to deliver that much protein without causing dangerous bloating, breeders rely on highly specific secret recipes, like the Gary Hayter's steamed egg protocol. Basically, you blend water and raw eggs, add a little garlic powder to stimulate the appetite, steam the mixture for exactly 4 minutes, and then let it steep for 13. What you get is this super soft custard that passes through the long intestine with zero mechanical resistance. And that's an absolutely crucial takeaway if you want to avoid the impaction usually caused by hard, dry pellets. All right, pillar number 4, engineering the environment and spatial dynamics. Here, we have to look beyond the fish to the water it actually lives in. Groomers physically mold the animal's shape using physical space and water chemistry. A goldfish will literally morph based on the physical stressors around it. For a ranchu, groomers use shallow water, maybe just 4 to 12 inches deep. This forces horizontal swimming, which builds peduncle tension and massive width. Conversely, for a rookin, they'll use deep water, up to 4 feet. That intense hydrostatic pressure encourages the fish to develop a much deeper belly and a taller dorsal hump just to adjust its buoyancy. It's wild. But shaping the fish physically is only half the environmental battle. The other half? An invisible chemical war. See, goldfish naturally release a growth-inhibiting hormone called somatostatin. In a closed tank, these hormones, combined with high nitrates, will actually suppress the fish's own pituitary gland and permanently stunt its growth. So what's the groomer solution? Massive, relentless water changes. We're talking replacing up to 90% of the water weekly just to aggressively flush out these invisible chemical signals so the fish can reach its true maximum potential. Finally, our fifth pillar, balancing mass and health to prevent pathology. Because, let's be real, pushing biology to these absolute extremes comes with some severe life or death risks. The pursuit of girth has to be carefully balanced against the functional health of the animal. And the biggest threat to these heavily groomed fish is swim bladder disorder. The swim bladder is this small, gas-filled organ that controls buoyancy. But because selective breeding has drastically shortened the fancy goldfish's spine to create that round shape, their internal organs are already deeply compressed. If a groomer pushes girth too fast or feeds the wrong diet, intestinal gas can physically crush the swim bladder, leaving the poor fish floating upside down or sinking helplessly to the bottom. So the crucial point is how master groomers counteract these severe pathologies. They basically treat these fish with the precision of elite sports physicians. They strictly use sinking foods so the fish don't swallow air at the surface. They implement a strict 24-hour fasting period once a week, a mandatory digestive rest day to relieve pressure on those internal organs, and they feed fibrous foods like deshelled green peas to mechanically sweep the intestines clear of gas. It requires constant, vigilant maintenance. It perfectly echoes what the aquaculture literature notes. The ultimate show specimen is not merely the largest or the roundest, but the one that most successfully navigates the biological tension between extreme morphology and functional health. Right? True grooming isn't just about overfeeding an animal until it's obese. It's a highly refined art form. The ultimate goal is to produce a muscular, vibrant animal with the structural integrity required to carry its own massive, engineered weight. Which really leaves us with this final thought. As techniques in temperature control, nutrition, and water chemistry continue to advance at such a rapid pace, we have to wonder, have we pushed the limits of biological art? Or is the perfect silhouette still out there, just waiting to be bred?